The shockwaves of the 2022 China-Solomon Islands security deal jolted the geopolitical landscape. Since then, the United States has ramped up its engagement in the Pacific. But what lies ahead under a second Trump administration? Let's dive into the complex dynamics shaping the future of U.S. Pacific relations. During President Biden's administration, the U.S. Pacific relationship reached new heights. Biden's Indo-Pacific strategy, released in February 2022, aimed to counter China's influence and reinforce America's strategic dominance. From high-level visits by U.S. officials to hosting Pacific Island leaders at the White House, the commitment to the region was clear. Key moves included opening new embassies, launching the U.S. Pacific Partnership Strategy, and pledging an ambitious $810 million aid package, with $130 million dedicated to climate change initiatives. The U.S. wasn't alone. Close ally Australia played a pivotal role, bolstering its aid and security presence in the Pacific. From agreements with Tuvalu and Nauru to the recent Solomon Islands security arrangement, Canberra stepped up to counter Beijing's growing influence. But with Donald Trump potentially returning to the White House, how might U.S. policy toward the Pacific evolve? The focus will likely shift towards security, maintaining previous agreements to prevent Beijing from gaining ground. For example, landmark defense agreements with Fiji and Papua New Guinea are expected to hold firm. However, tensions may rise over growing economic ties between Pacific nations and China. One of the thorniest issues in U.S.-Pacific relations is climate change. For Pacific Island nations, climate change isn't just a policy debate. It's a matter of survival. The region is already grappling with rising sea levels, more frequent and intense cyclones, and devastating droughts. According to the United Nations, some Pacific nations, such as Tuvalu and Kiribati, could become uninhabitable within decades if current global emissions trends continue. Pacific leaders have been vocal at international forums. For example, Vanuatu successfully pushed for a landmark UN resolution in 2023, backed by 130 countries, demanding accountability for climate justice. Samoa has led efforts to secure loss and damage financing, forcing wealthier nations to address the harm caused by climate change. Tuvalu has even proposed creating a global treaty to phase out fossil fuels. However, the Trump administration's anticipated stance on climate change could strain these relationships. A likely withdrawal from the Paris Agreement for the second time would signal a retreat from global climate commitments. Trump's energy policies, focused on revitalizing oil and gas industries, would further alienate Pacific leaders who view fossil fuel dependency as an existential threat. Adding to the tension, Pacific leaders have criticized the lack of urgency from major powers. In a 2023 statement, Tuvalu's Prime Minister Kausea Natano described ongoing fossil fuel projects as a death sentence for small island states. Meanwhile, the Biden administration had pledged $130 million for climate projects in the region, but these funds remain unapproved by Congress, leaving their future under a Trump presidency uncertain. The divergence between the U.S. and Pacific Islands on climate action will likely be a focal point in future UN negotiations. Organizations like the Alliance of Small Island States, AOSIS, and the Small Island Developing States, SIDS, will continue to demand more aggressive climate policies, while a Trump administration may prioritize domestic economic interests over international environmental commitments. This clash of priorities is poised to deepen mistrust, undermining broader efforts to maintain strong U.S.-Pacific partnerships. Despite facing immense challenges, Pacific Island nations have demonstrated remarkable resilience and unity, leveraging their unique geopolitical position to amplify their voices on the global stage. One major platform for this effort is the Pacific Islands Forum, PIF, which includes 18 member nations spanning the Pacific. In recent years, the PIF has worked to bridge internal divisions, presenting a unified front on critical issues like climate change, economic development, and security. This new Pacific diplomacy strategy has enabled these nations to negotiate effectively with global powers, including the United States, China, and Australia. For instance, in 2023, PIF leaders released the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent, outlining their vision for sustainable development, resilience, and regional security. It emphasized the need for tailored infrastructure investments and greater regional collaboration to address shared challenges, such as maritime security and disaster preparedness. Economically, Pacific Island nations have benefited from increasing donor interest. Between 2021 and 2023, total development aid to the Pacific region exceeded $4 billion, with Australia and New Zealand as the largest contributors. China, too, has invested heavily, providing nearly $1.7 billion in loans and grants since 2011, largely for infrastructure projects. One example of pragmatic cooperation is the Pacific Resilience Facility, a fund designed to strengthen disaster preparedness and climate resilience. Several countries, including Japan and the European Union, have pledged financial support, reflecting the growing international recognition of the Pacific's unique vulnerabilities. Additionally, Pacific Island nations have sought to expand partnerships beyond traditional allies. In 2023, Fiji signed a landmark trade agreement with the European Union, boosting exports of sugar, fish, and other key commodities. Similarly, Samoa and Papua New Guinea have engaged in bilateral talks with India to enhance agricultural and digital innovation collaborations. On the security front, regional agreements such as the Biketawa Declaration have solidified the Pacific's commitment to collective action in response to crises. The Solomon Islands and Vanuatu recently joined Australia in regional defense training programs, further showcasing the region's ability to coordinate efforts despite diverse political systems and priorities. These examples demonstrate that Pacific nations are no longer merely passive actors in global geopolitics. Instead, they are leveraging international competition to secure the resources and attention needed to address their most pressing concerns: climate resilience, sustainable development, and economic independence. As the geopolitical chessboard evolves, the Pacific's growing ability to collaborate with like-minded countries and attract global investments will continue to shape its destiny regardless of which administration occupies the White House. The future of U.S. Pacific relations hinges on cooperation, diplomacy, and the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. Will the second Trump administration rise to meet the Pacific's challenges, or will it open the door for other global players? Only time will tell. What's your take on this unfolding story? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more geopolitical insights.